Okay. Get myself organized here. All right. So Courtney, are you ready on your end?
Yep, we are recording.
Thank you. All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Mary Ann Kloss, and this is City of Clyde Hill, our council study session for Tuesday, May 24th, 2022. We are conducting this virtually as we still are in a state of emergency related to our COVID, and appreciate everyone's participation and attendance in this kind of forum. I know it's not easy, but we've been doing this for a while, and everyone seems to be coping pretty darn well. So thank you for that. So I will call us all to order. Courtney, where are we with our roll call?
All council members, with the exception of Bruce Jones, are present.
Okay, thank you. And either you or someone will, if and when he does arrive, will make note of that for everyone's awareness. Perfect. We do not normally do a Pledge of Allegiance on study sessions, so that is just an oversight on the agenda. And so you have the revised rule of orders for 1.1 and everything. Again, we should be pretty comfortable with that. And so now I'm at section 2, which is the agenda. I see Councilmember Hakomovich's hand up.
I would like to add an item 5.3, discussion of a public hearing at the June council session. Should be a short conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other changes or amendments to the agenda?
Yeah, that would be me.
Go ahead.
I realize we've heard from Tom as the city attorney with comments regarding an executive session, but I still feel we need to have one tonight to discuss the email that he sent out yesterday and that he updated this morning. My goal is to discuss the impact this would have on the city, and I realize that based on my request that specific parties would be recused from the discussion. I don't think this is a long discussion, but I really want to have some questions regarding all of that.
Okay, so we did see that, and you can see that that is item number 3 on the agenda. So we will, if the rest of your peers agree with that, we will look for that. Any other amendments? And then I'll ask for vote. Is there a second then for these 2 changes?
I'll second it, Scott.
There you go. I'm reading lips. Okay, it's second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that will be our plan of attack. All right, thank you very much. So now we are at section number 3, which is the executive session. I'm just doing one last check just to see, just in case if Councilmember Jones is able to get on, it would really be helpful if he were there. I guess a question could be whether you would like to amend and move on to section 4 and come back to executive session. It depends on whether you feel it's important to have Councilmember Jones be a part of that executive session.
I'm happy to move to move on to 4.1 and come back to the executive session.
All right.
It'd be great if he joins us. If he's able to join, give him an opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a second discussion. Dean R.
I was just going to remind everybody that Tom's attorney Brubaker is, I think, 3 time zones away. So just be mindful in that. 2 times, my bad, sorry. That's all.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep you awake there, Tom. Thank you. Yes. And,
Tom, I've done this before. I've done it from Wisconsin a couple of times.
4 o'clock in the morning
you can
for
handle
some European city, I think, Steve. So great. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So with that, there was a motion and second and no further discussion. Everybody in favor of moving to 4.1? All those say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So 4.1 is a consideration of a motion to adopt ordinance 983, which are the proposed amendments to the Clyde Hill Municipal Code Title II, which gives confirmation authority over the city administrator and combined city administrator / clerk role. And I appreciate our attorney's input. You see in the agenda, the memo, and then we have the title ordinance itself spelled out. I do also think, if I'm not mistaken, that Councilmember Hakamovich, you may have had some side work with our attorney to making sure the language was getting to the express level. Tom, anything you wish to add or reinforce before I ask for a vote or discussion?
I'm available to answer questions. I think the memo and the changes are pretty self-evident.
Yeah. All right. So with that, I'm considering a motion. Anybody cares to give me a motion?
I move. So moved. Sorry.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay,
Steve.
second to Councilmember Moore. Any further discussion on this? Councilmember Moore, hands up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just have a question, I guess, for Councilmember Hakamovich and anybody else that wants to weigh in as to why we didn't include a authority to fire the city administrator and city clerk. That
So
appointment,
here's
what a
Bruce.
dismissal. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll lean into that and put on my make-believe lawyer hat and say that I'm pretty sure that the only person that authority for firing is exclusively with the mayor. There's no adding that to this resolution or the municipal code. Like that is a separation of powers non-option. He says, using the international gesture for separation of powers. Tom, is that about right?
That's correct. The mayor is the
Okay.
chief executive officer by law and in charge of the hiring and discipline and termination of the city administrator position, subject to confirmation by the city council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I'll raise my hand visually this
Go
way.
ahead.
I'm super delighted that Councilmember Jones is here. One of the reasons I asked for this memo to be re-included is in the for consideration section. Hopefully I thought I saw him join. Is he here? Yes. He's muted, but he's here. In the for consideration section, there's an item that says it's obviously important for council to be able to provide opinion to the mayor about individual or collective views of how personnel are carrying out their duties, including city administrator. This can that can informally be done throughout the year, formally during annual review process. On the one hand, that is separate from moving ahead and voting on this Title II change. And on the other hand, I just wanted to put it front and center to see if there was consensus from council about this, and also to give Councilmember Jones an opportunity to comment or flesh that out if he wanted to.
And I'm not sure that Councilmember Jones has joined us. Am I not seeing him on the roster?
I see a Council 3 guest.
That would be Muramoto.
Sorry, that was
Sugar.
me. I somehow
That
my
was you
system
rejoining.
got disconnected. Yeah, I got disconnected. I
Okay.
rejoined. Sorry.
I just saw it fly by and I just
Yep.
assumed that
Sorry,
it was
sorry.
Bruce.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's me.
Anyhow, so I'll put it out to the council who are present. This is a comment about providing feedback to the mayor, whether it's informally throughout the year or during the annual review process, just to, and I know this is something that Councilmember Jones had some opinions about, and thus it appeared in this memo. I'm trying to see if there's any consensus or opinions about that feedback. Thank you.
Councilmember Moore.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I know that in Medina, there is a formal process for an annual review of their city manager, and that involves input from the city council. So is that sort of the basis on which you and Councilmember Jones were thinking about this?
Actually, thanks for asking. No, it was separate from Medina. Medina, since they have a different form of government, does it differently. I think this was just in the spirit of working together,
Okay.
and just across branches. And this is with full respect to the authority of the mayor, as our city attorney described. This is literally just making sure that there's a feedback loop.
Got it.
Thank
Well, given that the city administrator is the most powerful position in the city and it's a non-elected position, it's not even confirmed in Clyde Hill. I think that's an excellent suggestion, and I think we should codify that. Thanks.
Councilmember Friedman?
Yeah, I agree with the concept. I want interaction so that we can provide some comments to at a minimum to you, Mayor, in terms of reviews and the ability to communicate back our comments back to the city administrator. So I completely agree.
All right.
Okay, so that's not part of the actual ordinance 983. And so that would be something to take away and figure out how that would be processed, or Tom may have an idea. Yes.
This is a little bit of a surprise to me. You're trying to have an annual review or check-in with the mayor?
They just want to have feedback on performance is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, this is not formal. This is literally just
Sure.
a conversation. Informal, I think, is the actual. This can be done informally. So this is literally just, is there any listening as part of that performance review process? There's no obligation to do anything, et cetera.
Correct.
It's literally just, could we work together and listen?
Right. This is again, and Dean, I know you, or excuse me, Councilmember Akamovich, I know you understand this. This is a separation of powers issue. So it behooves the mayor to communicate and talk to you, but she is not necessarily required to.
Right.
Violent agreement that there's no way to obligate this, and thus this is a discussion point, and there's hope for, this is literally just an expression of opinion on the part of council around hope for this kind of listening collaboration.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I go around the city hall soliciting feedback and input for our annual review, so that would be not a problem. Okay, any further discussion? Then on this motion to adopt ordinance 983, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And
And we lost two of them. Here's aye. And we lost Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Moore, are you there?
I felt a bit like that after a a couple of drinks in a bar. Looks a little blurry there.
All right.
there he is.
There he is.
Councilmember Moore, we're voting on the adoption of ordinance 983.
My apologies. My dad had surgery today, and that was an update. So.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. Are you you're voting your vote choice?
I'm sorry. Which?
983. Everyone so far is voted aye.
Discuss. Okay. Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? And that passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. All right. And comments are so taken. Yes.
Can I just ask, since I had to get up and take that call?
Yeah.
Was there an amendment offered to provide us with the ability to give feedback?
There's no formal amendment because of the role with mayor on that, but you have my commitment that I will certainly solicit and listen.
Thank you. It's fine.
And as always, certainly signal to me at any point informally for feedback.
Thank you.
All right, we still do not have Jones here. So council, what would you like to do? Pursue on or go to executive session? Because the next one is on your council rules and procedures.
Yeah. I'm deferring to Councilmember Friedman.
I would, with due respect to the city attorney, I would move on to the executive session.
All right. Anyone opposed to that? We'll be somewhat informal and make this work. Okay, so let's move on then to.
Wait. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I can wait longer if you want, no problem.
No, there's
Okay,
no reason we shouldn't
It's all right.
proceed.
Yeah. I just want to keep this moving along, and I have a suspicion that maybe Councilmember Jones thought it was at 7. And I'm hoping that's what he was thinking. He'll be able to join us relatively soon. John Greenwood, if you're able to maybe try to make a call outside of this on my behalf, that would be helpful, just in case. I appreciate that. All right, so Councilmember Hakomovich, you might be leading us through this. We'll know. We're at 5.1. We have some discussion points, I think, that you have been working up with Councilmember Jones.
Sure. I don't know. For some reason, I thought we were going to exec session now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
misunderstood.
misunderstood. I thought you were wanting to continue on with the study items. Let me clarify, Guy. Everybody wants to go into.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought we were being
Yeah,
respectful to Tom's
I
time.
think we
and
should go to
going now.
executive session.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
I misunderstood.
No, I'm
Alrighty. So we're going up to section number 3. Let me get myself up here because I have to do the reading for the record. So this is pursuant to the RCW 42.30.110 1 subset I. The City Council will meet in executive session to discuss the legal counsel representing the agency matters related to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation to which the agency, the governing body, or the member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding the discussion is likely to result in adverse legal or financial consequence to the agency. This part of the agenda is expected to last. I'm putting 15 minutes down, and if we take longer, you'll know I'll come back asking for more time. After which the City Council will reconvene. No action is expected at this time. And Attorney Brubaker, do we need to do any recusing before we go into executive session? Oh, you're on mute.
I sent out an email later today trying to explain the complexities presented by this situation, and where potential litigation may involve certain council members in an individual capacity. So it's appropriate at this time for those who would not be who would be parties to that litigation to recuse themselves.
Councilmember Moore.
Along those lines, I hereby recuse myself from the executive session. Thank you.
Thank you.
And could somebody just text me when we're back in? So I've got some work.
We'll scream at you. There you go. Councilmember Hakomovich.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brubaker, were you about to say something?
No.
Okay. I'm recusing myself from this executive session.
Thank you.
We also need Mr. Rolla to withdraw as well.
Exactly. Okay. So with that in mind, I think, John, are you prepared then to take the rest of us into executive session? And I won't start the clock until we're all settled in there. It sometimes takes.
I will, and I will pop into that executive. If someone wants to pop out after 15 minutes to advise whether or not additional time is needed, I will assign individuals accordingly.
Could I ask one quick question, Mr. Brubaker? Sure. At this point, in the executive session, it's the mayor and 2 council members. I don't know if that's a quorum. I don't know if that matters.
You know, I could dig into that, and I don't have my Robert's rules handy, but I think with your recusals, you're down to a council of 3, and you still have a quorum.
Got it. Okay, just intellectually curious. Thank you.
I'm going to be clear that, you know, others might disagree, but that's the way I would look at it.
Thank you.
2 minutes and I'll have everyone in.
Okay.
All right, now that we're in.
Boy,
Wait a minute.
It's
Him
I'm
and
still
me,
here.
this will be fast.
I'm still here.
I
so-
know.
all right. Now
Well,
I'm seeing
Yep.
Steve and Kim and Tom. No, Dean, you need to go away.
I'm not in control of
I'm still in here too. I don't know why.
Oh, okay. All right. This
Kick
might
me
be
out, John.
interesting. Right.
It's happening.
Get off our island, darn it.
Take
That
me
was
out,
fun.
coach.
It should be opening up now. You should see invites.
Oh, I see. We're looking for an invite. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, there you
And-
go.
Yeah, Yep.
Councilmember Muramoto, I believe I've got you going in there as well.
Yep.
You're signed into the meeting in 2 different
there it is.
capacities. So. Courtney, I have 6:23. Is that your
Okay, thank
time?
you. Got it.
So that is 18, 38, 6:38.
Yep.
Dean Rolla? Courtney, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, John.
I just wanted to let you know, I just tried reaching Councilmember Jones and got no response, so.
Okay, thanks for letting me know.
I texted him as well.
Courtney, you on?
Yes, I'm on.
It is Sean. Hey, what time did executive session start?
It started at 6:23.
23. Do you mind me sharing a screen?
Not at all.
Let's see. Just for the purposes of anybody. Let's see. Window. Oh shoot. It won't let me share that. Hold on. I'm trying to make this work.
Okay.
It's just a little notice of what's going on for anybody who comes in and it's blank and people think they're in the wrong spot.
Oh, good call.
Sean, I believe that might be technically disabled. You'll see that everyone's video is off. I think that happened as soon as breakout happened. So I believe certain features are paused, but I couldn't tell you for a fact. So you might wait until the breakout room is closed. Oh, no, there it is. You got it. Here comes the mayor.
Here we are.
Can't believe that worked.
It did work. We weren't sure how to beam ourselves back, but we figured it out. Okay. Did we get Councilmember Jones to join? I don't see. Just doing a quick check.
No, he did not join.
And
Okay.
Scott, you're there. Okay, good.
All right. Did we get everybody back? Courtney, do another double check. Make sure we didn't leave anybody in limbo.
Looks like we have everyone back.
Okay.
I don't see Kim.
Or except, yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
see
I
him.
don't see Kim or Dean.
Or either Dean. Oh, there's Dean Rolo.
Yeah.
There's it. Okay.
There's Dean, and let's get Kim. He's probably looking for the meeting invite. Give him a second. You have Kim on speed dial there, Dean H. Worked last time. He just needs to sign back in.
He's trying to get back in.
Okay.
Do you need the link? It won't let him back in, he says.
John, can you invite him in directly?
So he's trying to come back.
I will send him a new link invite.
Okay, so John Greenwood sending you a new link invite. He has the email open, but he says the link is not doing.
Strange.
John, are you able to add him up there under invite someone to this meeting?
He's just getting a blank screen.
Yeah,
Okay, so in the short term, do you want to dial in? And then like
Any
you can
chance he's
restart it.
still in the
Or...
breakout room?
No, breakout rooms are.
People are asking. Okay.
Sorry, everybody,
right,
give us
you'll
a
see in a
moment.
sec.
We'd like to make sure we pick up on
Mhm.
one of our council members. He's going to dial in. Hopefully. Okay. Oh, here we, oh, no, I thought so. No, I was excited for a second, sorry.
I'm gonna send a separate and independent email to him.
I'm going to drive over and give him a Mac.
Spoken like a true former Microsoft executive there.
You sent that invite, John? We're just waiting for him to click on it?
2 different versions, yes.
Okay,
There it is.
there he is. Ah. Did we get you back there? Kim, is that you?
Yep, sorry.
Okay.
I'm gonna try it with the browser too, but yep, that's me.
Alrighty, thank you. I'm glad you were
Okay.
able to come back. Alrighty, everybody, we're gonna now, again, no further action is taken as a result of that. We're moving on to section 5 on our study items. These are the Council Rules and Procedures Committee. And so I guess, Councilmember Akamovich, where would you like to start?
Okay, so first, for context, there are 2 documents here. The one we're going to go through is the first one, the Rules and Guidelines discussion. The other document that has source material in its title is essentially all the original Medina or Woodland or whatever material that we started from. We put that in another document, so it's there if you want it, but it's not going to mess up or confuse as we go through our proposed text. So with that, we're going to go into the May Rules and Guidelines discussion document. The first page is just the table of contents. Here's all the material. And so we're going to start with 4.2 at the bottom of the first page. The pattern here is going to be the same pattern that we used last time. I'm going to offer a gist of what the section is about, and then the proposed text, so we can focus in on the proposed text and not have other distractions. So for 4.2, the gist involves council members providing clarity to distinguish between personal and city positions. And for context, this is resulting from some feedback from Councilmember Friedman about making sure that we have some kind of distinguishing text in this way. I'm guessing that that was your cell phone, Kim, that was exiting.
Sorry, turned it off. Yep, I came in with a browser.
Totally cool.
Sorry, I don't know what's
Cool,
going on with Teams. Okay.
No, that's cool. And so starting on 4.2, the proposed text, merging and simplifying from source materials, is right there. I mean, folks have had a couple of days to look at this. So rather than read it out loud, I think I'm going to play the role of auctioneer and channel my inner Bruce Jones and offer a, like, I will wait for people to basically say this is good by them, or they have questions or issues or concerns.
I was okay with this.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Brubaker.
Oh, you're on mute.
Muted. Sorry.
Just for context, are you fine? I'm just trying to get the big picture. Are you fine? Is this like you're finalizing a draft or you're finalizing actual, the end language? Or are you going to put it all together? I'm just not clear on the process.
Thanks for asking. This is penultimate step. So if people are okay with this text to make edits, then Bruce and I are going to put them to a Word document, clean up, make sure that there's flow, and then there will be one more opportunity for everyone to go, yep, this is the document. Now that I look at it again, you have more issues. It also provides a window of time for you to say, what were you thinking?
Yeah, well.
Okay. All right, so we heard from Councilmember Friedman, not Councilmember Moore.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of this proposal, and I want to recognize the amount of work that Councilmember Akamovich and Jones put into this. This is non-trivial, and I think it will lead to much better governance in the city of Clyde Hill. So I congratulate them on their hard work, and I fully support their recommendations.
Great, thank you. I'm going to move on to 1.7, which is filling a council vacancy. There are a bunch of different ways a council seat might become vacant. It's up to the council to fill the vacancy. Councilmember Jones and I looked at the rules and details for a bunch of different cities. We settled on this one. It made the most sense. They had an extraordinary amount of detail that was just numbing and painful. And it's available in the source material. We left it out of the actual rules and guidelines here, figuring that all that information can go into the actual application and form and instructions if and when the city council ever has to act on this. And with that, I'll leave it open for folks to see if they are okay with this approach.
So Dean, is it assumed, it is assumed here that it's the council making the decision as to who fills the vacancy, not anyone from administration or the mayor?
Correct. That's my understanding of how the RCW works.
Okay.
Yes, that's how it should be. There are statutes about how long that person will serve and all that other stuff, but you would select, you would fill the vacancy.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Good, thank you. And part of this is just make sure that there's a clear process so that the community knows what the process is and that it's fair and that there's no gaming of the system. Okay, so going once, going twice.
One thing, and this may be maybe a separate issue, kind of tangential to this, but I've noticed that originally all of the council positions were staggered, and I believe in the RCW, what happens if you fill a council vacancy, even if it's midterm at the new election year, that council member has to be reelected. So the appointed council member gets reelected, even if it's 2 years into a 4-year term, right? My concern here is, do we need to consider later on, not tonight, but later on, provisions that say, oh, by the way, guess what? We've got 5 council seats. And all of a sudden, because of these vacancies we've done, all 5 council seats get elected in the same year, which could be, I won't say disastrous, but it could create some turmoil if all 5 councils end up turning over. So I'm wondering if there's some things we need to consider in terms of how to accommodate that. I'll just put it out there.
Okay.
That's not part of this, but long term, let's think about that. Okay.
I believe, and I have to confirm Councilmember Muramoto in the statutes, but I believe it works like, say someone's elected for a 4-year term and 1 year in, they move to another city. Then you would appoint someone for the remainder of that first 2 years, because elections occur every 2 years. And then that person would run again for a 2-year term, not a 4-year term. And so the staggered positions will always remain in place.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's right. That's okay. Because yeah, I know I had to run again within 2 years. Okay, that makes sense. I get it. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Good question.
All right, so I think we're calling 1.7 good, and we're going to move on to 1.5. The gist of 1.5 involves advisory boards. The default ones seem to be the Planning Commission and the Civil Service Commission. And in our research, we found out that there's actually a whole bunch of different ones that the City Council is authorized to spin up as appropriate. I know it surprises everyone, Medina had a great deal of detail about how this works. We try to be selective around which tails we brought forward and which tails are left for other bits. There's quite a bit of text here. I think that why don't we focus on 1.5.1 and 1.5.2 for right now and see if we're okay with that, and then move on to 1.5.3. So I'll ask if folks are okay with 1.5.1 and 1.5.2, please. Go ahead, Councilmember Friedman, you okay with this?
Yeah, I just was reading the part about not appointing family members. That's what I was laughing at. I'm good with it.
Okay,
Okay.
Councilmember Moore,
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Mr. Brubaker.
You're on
Me
mute.
again, I'm sorry. I just want to clarify and one aspect of this provision, which is, as I've said to you before, feel free to contact and make inquiries of commissions and advisory boards and participate in their meetings as a resident. But since you're a resident and a council member, it's important that you clarify, and I know this is in there, that clarify that you're speaking as a resident, not a council member. But also when you say, and this is a natural thing to do, when the council passed this, they meant this, or they felt this, or they thought this. That is your opinion of what the council thinks. The council speaks as a body. So if there's not a document approved by the council, just try to do your best to be clear that this, if you're trying to describe council's perspective, describe it as your understanding, not as the voice of the council, in your emails and in your testimony. Thank you.
Okay. Great. I think that makes sense. I think that's consistent with what we had above in 4.2. 151 and 152, I'm gonna say that people are okay. 153, Councilmember Jones and I got feedback from Mr. Brubaker. Basically, we kept a great deal of detail, which is the paragraph that starts with more specifically and then the numbered list. The initial paragraph in 153 is our short version of it. Mr. Brubaker thought it was good to have all that detail. We left it in. If folks have any questions around council member roles relationship in terms of addressing bodies, we could discuss them now, or we could see if there are any questions around this guidance and then have that discussion another time. I'm looking at the council now.
I'm generally fine with this as long as it's clear to every council member. It's kind of like part of the training.
Right.
How many things do we not? I can speak for myself. There's so many things I didn't know about council behavior that I've been learning through error. So
yeah. Okay. So I'm putting that one in the bullpen. For example, there's a whole section that we are skipping for this V1 for this first version around like council goals and values.
Yeah.
Right. And this notion of, is there a training session, or does every council member coming on board like have to sign at the bottom of the rules and guidelines saying, yes, I've read all this and I'll do my best. That's the training aspect's a good one. If there are no other issues, I'm going to move on from 153 to 4.3, the next item. Okay. The gist is just a healthy reminder of all the public meetings and public records regulations that we have and how to do this. There was a great deal of detail in here that really just didn't make sense, and we're exchanging mail with administration around what the best policy book is for that to go into, for that detail to go into. This is at this point consistent with the text we approved for section 2.7, and it's just a restatement of OPMA and PRA and all the publicly posted city policies. So I think we thought it was pretty uncontroversial. I'll look at the other three for nods or objections. Okay, I'm going to move on to 4.4 then. The gist of 4.4 is that the city social media policy applies to the city council as well. We had a discussion of this kind of in passing a few months back. There's the thing that's kind of interesting right now is that I think the social media policy for the city is in a to come state. The city has a social media plan. And we need to figure out, like, I think my point here is that this refers to a publicly posted social media policy. When there's a publicly posted social media policy, I'm sure we'll adhere to it, and I think that that's in process. Sorry, Councilmember Moore, didn't see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I have a question on this one. Since we don't have a social media policy, at least as far as I know, it feels a little premature to adopt something like this until we have a chance to review it. So my concern, for example, is just that, social media is pretty broad, and it applies certainly to things that involve the city, but it also, it could also apply to any number of different issues that somebody might want to weigh in on that have nothing to do with the city of Clyde Hill. For example, in my Twitter profile, I mentioned that I'm an elected member of the City Council of Clyde Hill, but I weigh in on all kinds of things on Twitter that have nothing to do with Clyde Hill, and I would not be in favor of a social media policy that restricted my ability to do that. So I think this one, to me, feels like it needs to be fleshed out more before we adopt it.
Okay.
That's my feedback.
Okay. I'm looking to the other two council members. I'm happy to drop this one from version 1 and put it in the bullpen and have it come back when there's a social media policy that the council's discussed and approved. Is that your preference?
I think that makes sense. That's a good
That would
comment.
be my preference too. Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, so 4.4 is out of V1. Very glad we're having this meeting. All right, so 5.1. The gist of 5.1 is clarifying what a conflict of interest is. As we all remember from the training we did more or less recently, it's really quite narrow. And I include a bunch of links to some kerfuffles that happened over in Mercer Island. I don't think we're going to solve for that. That's another what I'll call item for the bullpen for the future. I wanted to make sure everyone knew that there are some interesting issues and that we might want to look to a code of ethics. In the short term, the proposed text for 5.1 is pretty short and is pretty much a direct lift and mix from other cities. And it just essentially restates what we've experienced in our training. And if there's feedback, I'm happy to hear it. Otherwise, we'll move on and I'll give a silent 10 count and then do the last call.
Let me ask the question. Does this adequately address issues in which there is a dispute between the city and a council member as a resident? And then, protects the community from the council member being involved in any discussions the council may have with respect to that?
I think that that's a different thing. I will look to the city attorney. The Washington State Code of Ethics, as I understand it, has more to do with, I sell chickens. And the city decides to, it's more the financial interest bits. But I'll look.
The Code of Ethics, the Washington State Code of Ethics is a little bit of an ambiguous document. It is focused mostly on contracts and beneficial interest in contracts, financial interest, but it also goes into other areas, conflicts, places where you would gain rights by virtue of your official position. Mm-hmm. I would say that, the law actually doesn't do a great job of speaking for itself, but caution should be taken to make sure you impose additional duties on yourself that you're comfortable with taking if it goes beyond the reach of the existing statutes.
Well, did you feel that these items here adequately address this issue at all, or maybe my issue or the issues it should be addressing?
First of all, I think if you have a conflict of yes, it does. We might want to take a further look at it, or Councilmember Hakamovich and Councilmember Jones and I might want to discuss it some. Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, if you have a conflict, you should recuse yourself, first thing, yes. Right? If you don't recuse yourself, then we say 2 council members can, I believe it's 2, can sort of nudge you out. Not sure that authority is there. I need to do a little research. I'm sorry, I maybe didn't give it enough attention when we first went over it. That's in our existing rules and guidelines, I believe. So
I think that's a different section.
oh, it is?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the bit about the two council members saying, hey, there should be a recusal here is a different section, but
Okay.
the point's still there.
But anyway, so I would say yes, it does, but I think it deserves a provision like this deserves real scrutiny so that you address the issues you have concerns about and that you don't push yourselves further into a corner than you want to go, because there are always unusual circumstances. You try to draft around every probability, and then sometimes it catches you on the backside. So I'm sorry to give you such a vague answer. In short, mostly yes, but as is often with the law, there may be a few ways, or there may be some gray areas still.
Maybe this is one we should study a little more.
Yeah.
Right, and so to the point, so Councilmember Jones and I talked about this. I think the way we're thinking about it is that there's version 1 that we get done and signed and on the books, and then there are the refinements. And this is a fine example of where we said, wow, a code of ethics might make sense. And
Yeah,
here
and
are the
I think
refinements. So
it's in very good shape. It's in very good shape. So yes, it could easily be, just worked around the edges. So
Okay. So does that mean we
my,
go back and work around the edges and come back with it, or do we? I mean, I agree with the language that's in there. I just want to make sure it hits all the areas.
I'm trying to be as quiet as I can be because it's the council's meeting.
I know, but you're helping me understand.
Excuse me, it's Councilmember Hakimovich's subject.
Yeah.
But yes, if we talk on the side, there's no reason not to keep it in the bundle and keep it moving forward, and we'll fine tune it.
Okay.
If we need to.
Mm-hmm.
For what's worth, like Councilmember Jones and I thought about this as good enough for version 1. Let's use this as a baseline and then make it better. I'm sorry, okay. Councilmember Moore.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of ask a question for clarification, because it seems to me that this one, conflicts of interest, and the next two, appearance of fairness and council voting and conflicts, are kind of mirroring state law, right? I mean, these are all concepts that are captured in RCW, I think. Yep. So in a sense, we're just sort of blessing what is already in the state law, but making it explicit so that if somebody comes onto the city council, they have a document they can refer to that very clearly states, hey, this is how it works. They don't have to just, go search Washington state law and try to interpret it for themselves. Is that an accurate interpretation?
Yeah, we're trying to have a handy reference for like the ballpark version of it.
Well, then I'm good with all three of them.
Okay. All right. So any other? So I think we're okay with 5.1 for now.
Yeah.
Councilmember says he's okay with 5.2. Or is there any other feedback on either 5.2? Yeah, let's just say 5.1 and 5.2. I'll say going once, going twice, and we'll say sold. 3.6, council voting and conflicts. This is a pretty direct lift around how council members may abstain, which I haven't seen a whole lot of in our city council to date, and also to call attention to recusal. And I think this is where some of the text is around recusal. Anyhow, so is there any feedback on 3.6?
No.
Okay, so 3.6 is good. 7.2 is a great example of what Mr. Brubaker brought up, which is this is a form of self-policing. This doesn't exist right now in the city for the city council. This is a process for censure, and the gist is how to hold fellow council members accountable to the rules and guidelines. And I'm not going to read this out loud, but it's pretty straightforward in terms of steps. There seems to be a great deal of notice, a great deal of opportunity to remedy the situation, and then eventually a motion for censure. I'll leave people a quiet 5 count to reconsider this and then ask if folks are okay with it. Okay, so I'm going to offer going once, going twice, and sold.
Mhm.
Right. So, all right. So now we're on to what I'll call a different part. Mr. Jones.
You're on mute. Bruce, you're on mute.
Yes, I've had some computer issues. I'm deeply sorry I'm late.
Glad
It
to
sounds
have you.
like it sounds like things are underway.
Yep.
I was just doing the transition. We're at 1.2 in the May rules and guidelines discussion. And this is these sections are very different from the ones we reviewed so far. These are really just recounting facts, whether they're from RCW or MRSC's Mayor and Council Member Handbook or other MRSC documents. And so this is really meant, to Councilmember Moore's point, of just having a convenient reference handy of, for example, here are the duties of the City Council in one place. Along with where to look in the RCW if you want a more complete description. So that's 1.2. I will call attention to 1.2.1. It turns out that one of the few duties that is actually enumerated is attending the regular meetings. And this is a great example of something that city is supposed to do in its rules and guidelines, which is make clear how a council member's absence can be excused. So we have rules for that here. It also refers to the responsibility for filling vacancies and then sends the reader over to that other section that we already talked about. I think Councilmember Jones and I thought this was non-controversial because it was mostly lifting other material, and I'll leave room for Councilmembers Friedman, Moore, and Muramoto to comment, or we can, I'll do a 5 count.
I'm good.
Okay, so we're going to call that good. We'll move on to 1.3. This is the city council rules and guidelines. We're not going to tell anyone else what to do. The roles of the mayor here are straight out of RCW and the Clyde Hill Municipal Code. And again, this is just meant as a convenient distillation and reference. Mr. Brubaker, I don't know if there's anything you'd suggest here. It seems pretty straightforward, I think.
No, I have no comment. No, it's fine.
Thank you. All right, and so I'm gonna look for nods from the rest of council. Getting nods, we're gonna move on to 6.2. 6.2 is straight out of Clyde Hill Municipal Code, the duties and responsibilities of the city administrator. Again, I think this is non-controversial. 6.3 also pulls out the key bit from the municipal code around non-interference. And the clear bit around, except for the purpose of inquiry, the council will deal solely through the administrator, et cetera. And so this is straight out of the municipal code. The bit out of MRSC just emphasizes the non-interference. I will pause here if people have any feedback or people just want to nod at the text that we have here. There's nodding, so I'm going to move on. And go to 6.4, the city attorney. This is a fine opportunity for Mr. Brubaker to weigh in. The bit on top is straight out of MRSC, and the bit underneath that is numbered was out of a city attorney search committee document. Councilmember Jones and I wanted to put both these pieces of text here, and you don't need to give us feedback right now. We're happy to edit this based on your feedback. Right now, it seems pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
And you should feel free after 2 or 3 hurricanes to let us know what you think of this.
All of these provisions are descriptive of the existing obligations of these roles. So I have no comment at all. I just hope I fulfill them adequately.
Okay. So with that, and with a couple of the changes that people have noted, removing the social media item until there's a policy in place, getting clear around training and signing off on these rules and guidelines, and circling back after we have a version 1 in place to work on an ethics code and other bits on conflict of interest. I think we have working text that we can, Councilmember Jones and I can move forward and fold into a Word document and bring to the June council meeting for a vote.
Yeah.
With no surprises. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you, guys.
all we have.
All right.
Thank you, Councilman. This is a yeoman's job. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Very good.
That's the end of the
Second.
End of
Councilman.
5.1. Okay, good job. Appreciate it. Good discussion, everybody. That felt good. Okay, 5.2 is discussion regarding code enforcement, and Councilmember Friedman, I think this was your cue up.
Okay, well, in the packet is a memo that I wrote that was intended to illustrate the problems that I see with enforcement. And what I did was I used a neighbor complaint related to a living fence and reviewed the complaint, and then reviewed what I understood to be the enforcement and other issues related to all of that. And so, since we're getting into a review on enforcement and other Title 17 ordinances, and that's several months away, and my concern is it's several months away or longer. What I want to understand is, what does the administration plan to do to resolve these problems now in advance of the Planning Commission's work? So to me, it's a question that I want to bring back to the administration to understand, because they can make changes and update policies to allow us to be to treat the residents when it comes to enforcement in a fair and clear manner, and make sure the policies are fair and clear.
Yeah. I will respond, but I just want to make sure there wasn't another comment. It's unfortunate that we had to cancel yesterday's prep meeting, but I feel like what we have maybe to discuss, not only getting the input from the task force on the priorities, which was the original kind of meeting, but also with that in mind, Councilmember Friedman, we have a creative idea that might work, and it's more around looking at some of the conditions of which we take enforcement, and that there might be an opportunity there to look at under what conditions are we going to have to take action for enforcement against what's currently in the code. Because you're right, if we're wanting to go after the code and make changes, small, big, or otherwise, that takes time. We got to get our residents' input and make sure that it's meeting kind of the vision that we see ourselves. We're all very clear. That's all part of this big process that we're on. But in the meantime, I sense and I know that we want to do things that can right here and now maybe make an impact until we eventually get to those changes down the road. And so I think that some of the ideas that we have, that we need to get that group back together to kind of throw out there and see if those might be an answer to your question, that I'm hopeful for, because we need something now while we're waiting for something going forward in the future.
Couldn't agree more.
Let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So that suggests that there is an understanding and agreement that we need to clarify the policy that's in place today that enforces, that we use to document when we enforce violations, potential violations or potential violations. Is that correct?
It could be that, or it could be another element of our code. There's some options or creative options that we want to toss out and kind of see where we want to go with that.
Okay, and what are we looking at? You're assuming we get the committee together, they listen through and help you revise policies, and then you present that back to council so that we can agree.
Yeah. We wanted to throw everything on the table and have that level of discussion, do some priority setting. If this, then that. If we don't do this, is this something we could do or consider instead of? And then really kind of get that level of discussion going and then be able to bring it back. Maybe if we get our timing between now and the June council meeting, would be able to kind of bring it back to the June meeting and get you guys on board with what we're thinking.
Yeah,
That would be ideal.
Because I would advocate that we need to understand, we need to clarify what truly constitutes a complaint. We need to clarify how we communicate the policy to the residents. And that includes who, and further, we may have to clarify who can make a complaint. Understanding that ordinances in Title 17 is particularly, but other are going to change over time, and then we revise policy as necessary. But it would suggest to me that we, this is something that can help help the community, help the residents, but it helps us move forward and might resolve some of the the issues that the staff has in trying to handle these types of things.
I hear you. Okay, let me
I'll
go to
stop.
some hands here. Yeah.
just
Councilmember
wanna
Hakomovich.
Okay, so I hear you, and I admit I'm kind of confused. The land use committee, who's all about which chapters and what order with what process and alignment to the planning commission and all that.
Mhm.
And eventually 17.80 enforcement will be in that queue and will be next up, and there'll be a great conversation about it. But that's off in the future, and that's probably, with all the approval process, like 2 years away from impacting residents. And Councilmember Friedman's question, I think, was much simpler and more immediate. And I think he even asked that question 6 weeks ago. Looking at the second attachment, at the second document under enforcement, and the question there at the end is from Councilmember Friedman and me. We are looking to the city administration to tell us what adjustments to the code enforcement policy make sense implied now in order to serve the community better. Now, if there are changes to the enforcement policy that you're interested in, then for sure we should have that conversation about changes to the enforcement policy. And that's separate from the land use committee that's working 1780. And short-term changes can feed into 1780. But I think Councilmember Friedman's question now and 6 weeks ago was about what are the changes we're making now for the community in advance of Title 17 review finishing in 2 years. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Yes, yeah, because that's on the list, and that was one of the points of discussion that was going to go with that a smaller task force. But then we also have some ideas that we wanted to float past that task force group to see if that might be something for consideration. So that's where we're at. So it's kind of a both and that we need to do.
What's the task force? I'm sorry, can you just clarify what the task force is?
The land use group, you and Councilmember Muramoto. The
Okay, so
meeting that we should have had yesterday as representing council. And then helping to set priorities, one of those being the enforcement policy. What are we going to tackle? Where do we want to go? And then there's some additional ones that we threw on there that we needed to have in a priority. And then taking a look at maybe some additional proposals that might help us in the short term.
Yeah, I think I'm back in the confused column right now. Eventually, 2 years from now, there will be a Title 17 review. It'll be done, et cetera. It'll include 1780.
Yeah.
In the short term, changes to the city's enforcement policy today is, I think, what Councilmember Friedman's asking about. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And so when does the city want to have the conversation around the pre-Title 17 changes? Sorry, when does the city administration want to have the conversation around policy enforcement, adjustment and changes that happen before Title 17 gets approved 2 years from now? When does that conversation happen?
Okay. The land use task force, which you're right, that we agreed to come together, you and Councilmember Morimoto. We have all these things that we want to get to, enforcement being one of them. And you guys were also asking, it's like, what are we doing? When are we doing? What's the order? Everything has to be done now, but we can't do it now because we have
No one's
finite
saying
number of
everything's-
resources, right? So we
No
wanted
one's
to
saying
get
everything has to
together
be
and
done.
put that all out there and define what is the process. So if we want to do the enforcement up front as the first order of business, and then we take a look at these other ones later, we just have to put a timing down. You guys have been asking for it, and we need to know the order and sequence of which the work gets done.
Okay, I think I understand the disconnect. Reworking chapter 1780 and enforcement, right? That is definitely land use committee, planning commission, all that. Separate from rework, right now the city has enforcement policy that is not in 1780.
Okay.
And I think the question Councilmember Friedman
Right.
asked this evening and 6 weeks ago is, when is the plan to adjust that non-1780 enforcement policy?
Right.
And
Okay.
that has nothing to do with 1780 because it's not in 1780 now.
No, I hear you. It's, I guess my bigger plead is we have all of these things, majority of which is what I just talked about, and we're adding this, and we probably have a few other items. It's the same group of people for the most part that has to get the work done. And we're desperate to kind of redefine the sequence and the priorities by which we start tackling all of that. So that was just, asking for the assistance from the two of you as the representatives there to say, can you help us figure out the priorities off of it? I totally get it that you want both and it all has to be done.
No, I think I understand. I just want to say it to make sure I get it.
Yeah.
There's no, the plan right now is that there is no change to city enforcement policy ahead of 1780 changes.
At this point, until we
Okay.
Yeah, define that. Right.
Thank you. Okay. Thank
Right.
you.
Let me see, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you. I'm going to make a more of a meta comment here than being down weeds. I think that Councilmember Friedman's memo is useful because it kind of illustrates the absurdity of the situation that we face with the current code, both with regard to the enforcement, section 17.80, if I'm not mistaken, as well as some of the very detailed and very unusual and frankly not present anywhere else as far as I can tell, regulations with regard to plantings that we have in Clyde Hill. And these date from 30 years ago. And in my opinion, these regulations are completely outdated. We know for a fact they've been enforced in a completely inconsistent manner. You, Mayor, have admitted that in public session. And to bring us into compliance with these silly laws would require an army of people. We're not going to hire an army of people to do this. And so my meta comment is just that I don't think that the city should be in the business of micromanaging plantings that are in the right of way adjacent to people's property or even on their property, except for in very broad strokes. So if we want to avoid people impeding other people's views, fine. But other than that, who cares whether somebody grows a hedge, a living fence or not? Who cares what kind of plants somebody plants? It's just absurd. So, we've created, or the city, we haven't done it because nobody on this council was present when these laws were passed in the last time in 1992. None of us had anything to do with that, and yet we're stuck with this. And it's created, not only has it created a lot of confusion, wasted a ton of time and resources for the city, and it's also created significant liability risk, financial risk to the city. And so that's my meta comment, is that really, we should endeavor as a city council, in my opinion, to get out of the business of trying to regulate what kind of plants are growing on people's property or adjacent to their property. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Muramoto?
Yeah, I'm gonna take another swing at this. And I apologize if it's redundant to what other council members have said. So I think there's a couple different issues. One is titles that are either two things, either are there that we don't enforce, or frankly need to be changed. So that's two problems. I think that as we work through the process over the next couple of years, we will fix those two, right? Either to say, we need to enforce those policies there, we need to change them, okay? The problem is there's also a very, very, very short-term issue. Now, I completely understand, Mayor, your executive rights and as the executor to enforce those things that you feel are necessary. As a council, I guess my request would be to have some visibility into what you're going to do. And I think as a council, and then even more importantly, as a citizen, to understand what the city is going to do so that we're not in kind of a reactive mode, getting calls from as council members, getting calls from various citizens saying, hey, what's going on here, this and this, and so, it's not fair, blah, 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 blah. At least we can maybe provide some opinions as council to say, well, are we being consistent with this and this and this property? Or should we, again, take that as feedback to say that that thing is wrong, we need to clarify some stuff. So again, two pieces. One is the long-term fix, which Councilman Hakomovich, sorry, Dean, very, very clearly stated is a long-term problem, right? It's 2-3 years out and maybe more. There's also the enforcement side. Again, I do not want to, as a legislator, take any power away from you, Mayor. That being respectful, but I would like some visibility into what the city is going to do. That's more of a request as a council, and then also as a citizen. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, other comments? We're not passing a motion. I think we're just making sure we're communicating and expressing our thoughts and commentary. Let me see. Kim's hand is still up, so I'll go to Councilmember Jones.
Sure. I just wanted to say that Council Member Muramoto, I think, expressed my feelings about this very well, and I would agree with him that if we can get a better understanding of how you're going to deal with the rules and handle the enforcement in the short term until we get 1780 nailed down, that would be very beneficial.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Hakomovich. And you're on mute.
You're right. Thank you. I agree with Councilmember Jones and Muramoto. I think a statement of what's the short-term approach and plan would be super helpful. I want to go back to a request that I think reflects something that Councilmember Friedman asked for that's worth incorporating there, which is just a statement of, yes, we see problems. We, the administration, see problems. Here are the problems we see. I get how the solutions are hard, but even just agreement on what the problems are, I think would be super helpful. The solutions I get are hard, but literally just saying we see, because that would be, I think, super valuable for the council to say, got it, we're on the same page, we see the same problems. Or okay, we're almost on the same page, we almost see the same problems. My one question on this is, what's at what meeting do you want to have this conversation? Because I know that council agendas fill up quickly, and I know that we have lots of things that are. So I'm just saying, if you put a stake in the ground, then I'm pretty sure everyone in council can not ask about it until that date comes.
Right. I have to get with the team to decide and see if we can do the pre-work, you know, how much pre-work and what resources we have in order to define which council meeting we can put it on.
Okay, that sounds
So
great.
it'll be an IOU, but we'll let
Okay.
you know. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So I guess my hope is that at the June council meeting, we just have an item saying, yep, we heard this and here's our date.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Then we had added 5.3, which was public hearing at the June council meeting. Councilmember Hakomovich,
Right.
I think that was yours.
Right. Councilmember Friedman and I are aware of two petitions going around the community. One petition in particular is of interest. It seems from our shared understanding that a number of residents are signing on to a petition to put an item on the ballot for Clyde Hill residents to consider changing the form of government. And enough residents have called me about this, and I think I've called Councilmember Friedman about this, that we think it would be a good idea to have a meeting, to have at the June council meeting, a session that allowed, that accommodated members of the public who wanted to address the council and say, I signed this petition with this in mind, or I entertained the concept of this petition and I didn't sign it for this reason. The one other thing I will add before asking Councilmember Friedman if I fairly represented our conversation is that it would be great if we would allow residents to email in their comments so that residents didn't have to show up at a meeting and queue and wait. It seems that attending a meeting seems to be a high bar for a high friction event for a lot of folks. I'm hoping we could also allow residents to just email in their comments. Councilmember Friedman, did I fairly represent what we discussed?
Yes, you did. And
Good.
my feeling is there's a lot to be discussed in an issue like this, and there's a lot that's not understood. And if we can have an open discussion, understand what the public thinks, what their issues are, and learn more about the consequences of this type of a decision, it might help us make a better decision.
Okay, and so you're asking for this for June. I guess I'm looking to Tom, the prep work on this. I mean, that doesn't give us a lot of time. Or if it's just listening to them, it's one thing. But if there's any level of memo and prep and response, you just ask, you know, what are the consequences? I mean, I don't know if we would have time for June, but I understand the timing. If this is going around and people are trying to make a decision whether they're going to sign it or not, we shouldn't be delayed in at least trying to have some discussion. Any thoughts there, Tom?
Yes, never done this before. I believe there are some statutes that show how to change a form of government. And so I'd like an opportunity to look at it, because if it is discussed, there will be those kinds of questions. So I guess what I would say is, depending on the complexity, which I'm not quite clear on right now, if we need more time before the June meeting, I would ask for it. Otherwise, we'll try to make that date.
For the sake of simplification, I can imagine, given all the other business we have going on in any given meeting, that this might be a two-part thing, where part one in June is we listen, and part two happens in July after we listen and we come back with consequences, etc.
Sure.
And it just, if that simplifies things, just
I mean,
for the
that
sake
would
of catching
simplify, because
people.
I mean, we heard Tom's on vacation for the week, and then we go into our others. It's just out of fairness for time and resources. It's certainly open for absolute hearing. Yeah.
I'm just trying to create an option to simplify things and avoid undue work and pain. And that's one opinion. I'm not sure what the rest of council thinks, of course.
I know.
think
So
Councilmember Moore is, sorry.
I'll just quickly interject to say this, you know, that meeting is your meeting. You're the city council. And if you want to put it on the agenda, that's your right. My only point was, it would be nice to be able to be as prepared as we can be.
Of course.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. I
So
think
other
Councilmember Moore's hand was up.
council member, I don't see Councilmember Moore's hand, but Councilmember Moore, did you have a comment?
Sorry, about the hearing?
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm just,
I'm all in favor of it. I think it's great. Whether we do it in June or July, I'm sort of indifferent about, but I know for a fact there's a lot of interest in this topic, and there are petitions circulating in the city, so I think and I know there are quite strong opinions at this point among Clyde Hill residents and voters, so I think it'd be great for the council to hear directly from people that want to weigh in. To me, it doesn't seem like it would take a lot of preparation, hold a public hearing, just basically say here's what it is, put the notice out, and anybody who wants to come and, weigh in, could do that.
right, the preparation is being able to answer questions and comments. That's the part. So if it's listening only at the first part, that certainly seems reasonable. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
Would there be
Councilmember
any issue?
Jones, I'm sorry. I'm just going around the block here real
You're right,
fast.
You're right.
Any comments or anything?
Well, the listening approach sounds like a reasonable start. That's all I have.
And then,
Yeah.
all right. And yes, Councilmember Muramoto.
Yeah, the same. I think that we just, big ears, little mouth in June. I certainly, when I heard about it, had lots of questions about transition planning and all those other things, which is the nuance, but it may not even pass. So I don't want to, over rotate on things that may or may not be, but I certainly want to listen to the input from our citizens. And I think a two-part would be very, very good. Listening to what the proposal is, and then maybe caucusing back and in a second meeting to discuss some of the ramifications if it passes. Now, that said, it wouldn't be until, later on in the year that anything would happen. So we have lots of time to think through it and discuss the ramifications and legal consequences, so forth and so on. So, but like I said, I think step one is just to big ears, little mouth, listen. And I am all in favor of that.
All right. So then Councilmember Hakomovich, you mentioned 2 petitions, so that was 1. Are you finished, or you have a second one you want to bring up?
I just wanted to finish up on
Okay.
the first one, which is just, it sounds like there's consensus for June meeting listening.
Yep.
And my one request is, and I'm not sure how to do this, if it's just inviting the community to send emails, and if the topic is this, then they'll be included in the packet. I know Medina does a great job. Medina historically, for certain topics, instead of requiring residents come to the meeting, accepted email feedback. And I think that's actually part of their rules of procedure. I think Councilmember Jones and I covered that in the transition, but that's not in place yet. So
Well,
my
Clyde Hill
point is making sure that
allowed that also in the past.
Oh,
The
great.
big issue
Great.
has been that do we read each and every single one, or they just want it at your fingertips by which to read on your own? That's the big difference. If we only get, in the past, we've only had a few, and that hasn't been a problem. If somebody hands in one with a 10-page commentary, are we obligated to read it all? You know what I'm saying? It's just it's time and effort. So I don't know what your preference is. We can certainly make it centralized for people's viewing and have it available there.
Yeah, I'm saying just including it in the packet. I'm fine unless there's some state requirement that we read these things in. Just having them in the packet so residents can see their feedback would be great. Thank you.
So Tom, ponder that answer while I'll go to Councilmember Moore.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump on that point and say we should, when we notice the public meeting, we should make it very explicit that if people can't attend or don't want to attend and speak in public, that they have the right to submit comments in writing and tell them how to do it. Because while I do agree it has happened in the past, it has not been explicitly explained that that's acceptable, that we invite people to do that. I definitely don't think we need to read them into the record. If somebody wants something read into the record, they should attend the meeting.
Oh no.
Just collect the input and share it among all of us. I think is a very useful thing to do, but you have to tell people that they can do it.
All right, thank you. All right, Tom's going to come off mute and answer.
I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I was quickly trying to see how to switch from one form of city to another, and I'm not sure I heard the question, so please repeat it.
Oh, the question is, are we obligated to have to read one's commentary email? If we allow them to email their comments, we could
Absolutely
just
not.
put it in the packet.
Say just add it to the record.
Okay. If they feel adamantly that they want to have this on the record, I guess verbally, then as Councilmember Moore mentioned, then they should do their best to get to the meeting and present it verbally.
That's correct. And also if a council member feels like they want to or need to read it for that person, they could do that too.
Okay.
Well, that would obviously add to the time. And the other thing you should think about is time for public comment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
Great.
Yeah. Dean?
Yeah, my recollection is we already have 2 public hearings set for the June meeting. Just talking about time, I believe there's one on the TIP and the other one's escaping my mind at the moment, but feels like there were 2. It was in the
Okay.
last admin report.
All right, so it's gonna be a busy meeting. When isn't it, right? Okay, so going back to Councilmember Hakamovich, was there a second petition? You said 2. I just want to make sure we're got everything on the docket.
Thank you. I think the first petition is the one that's going to require a great deal of engagement that we just described. The other petition involves several residents who are interested in the city council reconsidering whether fowl are acceptable pets. And they are taking an approach of getting a petition in order to demonstrate that this is not just 1 or 2 people. That is in process, FYI.
All right, so it's an
Chickens
FYI.
have
Okay.
rights too.
I'm sorry.
Said chickens have rights too, you know.
There we go. All right, they can wake you up next door at
And,
5
and,
o'clock
and
in
that
the
would be
morning.
that would be FOWL, right, as opposed to FOUL.
Yeah, FOUL or
okay. Got it.
FOWL, which
Got
one
it.
is
Okay.
it?
Copy that. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you for the heads up. Is there anything further? I think we've reached the end of our meeting time. A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Unanimous that we will adjourn. Thank you all. We will be in touch. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you
Happy
to our
Memorial Day.
residents who have sat